Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for a Tax Practitioners Board webinar. My name's Julie Shaw, and I'm joining you today from Ngunnawal and Ngambri country. We respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, waters, and community. We pay our respect to them, their cultures, and elders past, present, and emerging. Now, just to begin today, I do have some quick housekeeping messages. First of all, if you would like to access a copy of today's slides, you can visit our webinar resources hub, and you can do that at tpb.gov.au/webinar-hub. You'll see the link there on your screen as well. And we will also email you a copy of the slides following the webinar, and we'll do that via the email address that you used to register today. Now, today's webinar does count towards your continuing professional education, or CPE, and you can claim 1 hour for attending today. And just in relation to that, we will be issuing you with an attendance certificate, and we'll issue that to everyone who stays online for the webinar today. Now, let's have a look what we'll be covering in the webinar today. We'll be discussing tax practitioner demographics. We'll have a look at the requirements for renewal, which include fit and proper person requirements, professional indemnity insurance, and continuing professional education. We'll also look at how to renew your registration, and then to finish up, we'll answer some of the questions that we received during the webinar today. And we have Amanda and Dominic online today from our client services team, and they'll be responding to your questions as we go. So just make sure you pop them into the Q&A. And if you do want to find the Q&A, you can just hover over your screen with your mouse and you'll see the icons pop up along the bottom of your screen there. You can also use the chat function today to chat amongst yourselves. We won't be monitoring the chat very closely during the presentation, so if you do have a question that you want a response to, please just make sure that you use the Q&A. Now I'd just like to introduce our speaker for today. So please welcome Tracy Barrow, our Client Services Business Manager. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Julie, and thank you. Hello to all our tax practitioners out there, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today's webinar is really about your registration with us, registering in the first instance and then renewing your registration. So it gives you an opportunity to ask the questions. As Julie has said, we've got people available to answer questions online for you or to provide you with additional information. Our main focus is to let you know more about the key things you need to have ready when you're due to renew your registration, and hopefully to help you prepare for that renewal. Your renewal might be approaching, and there are things you can start doing now which will assist you with that process. It's important to note that individuals and businesses must be registered with the TPB if they are providing tax practitioner services for a fee or other reward. If we find that a practitioner has failed to comply with their obligations or are providing services whilst unregistered, the TPB will impose some sanctions or see a court order or civil penalty.
Thanks for that introduction, Tracy. Yes, thank you. How about we start off the session now by just conducting a quick poll so that we can find out who's joining us today. So I'm just going to launch that poll and it'll pop up on your screen, and all we're asking of you today is, are you joining us as a tax agent, a BAS agent, or other professional? So I'm just going to launch that for you right now, and then we will give you some time to respond. And we'll come back and share the results in just a second. Okay, we've got about 70% so far who have participated, so I'll keep it open just for a couple more seconds just to give everyone a chance. Okay, I'm just going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results with you, but so far it looks like we've got about 63% of you registered as tax agents, 34% as a BAS agent, and 3% of you are here today as a other professional. So let's dive into the presentation. And Tracy, would you like to start off by giving us a look at what the registered tax practitioner population looks like?
Thanks, Julie. That's a great idea. You can see on your screen now some statistics there, which as at the 30th of June 2023, they show that we have over 62,500 registered tax practitioners in Australia. Of those, over 45,500 are tax agents and just over 17,000 are BAS agents. 70% of our tax agents are individuals and 30% are partnerships or companies. And of our BAS population, 78% are individuals and the other 22% are BAS agent partnerships or companies. Interestingly enough, over 82% of our individual tax practitioners are members of a recognised professional association. 69% of tax agents are male and 81% of our BAS agents are female. When it comes to age, 57% of our individual tax agents are over 50 years of age and 62% of our individual BAS agents are over the age of 50. The value that tax practitioners bring to the tax system is really highlighted on this next slide. As you can see, in the 2021 financial year, tax practitioners were responsible for lodging 64% of all individual income tax returns. That's an amazing 9.6 million individual returns lodged. When it comes to business lodgement, tax practitioners are also instrumental here, lodging 93% of all business income tax returns. This equates to 3.8 million lodgements. This illustrates how much the community rely on tax practitioners and shows the importance of having qualified and registered tax practitioners in the profession.
Thanks, Tracy. That's a really good way to start, I think, and sets the scene for us today. Can you tell us now how tax practitioners can check when their renewal is actually due?
Certainly. So we'll look at the renewal process, and where it starts is you really need to be aware of when your registration renewal is due, when your expiry date is. If you're unsure of what your expiry date is, you can check that by visiting our TPB website and have a look on the TPB Public Register by searching for either under your RAN or your name, and it will tell you when your registration renewal date is. Once you know when your registration is due, it's important to note that you must renew at least 30 days prior to that date, and that's contained in the TASA legislation, but not more than 90 days, and we do make the form available to you at 90 days out. There's a number of requirements that you need to meet at your renewal, and we will talk about those in the coming slides, but you need to plan ahead so that you are prepared for that renewal. Don't leave it to the last minute because there may be some information that you need to collect from third parties. So it's a good idea to request the information as soon as possible. When you renew your registration, you must show that you meet the registration requirements. So these include being a fit and proper person, having professional indemnity insurance that meets the TPB's requirements, having your continued professional education up to date. And for companies and partnerships, you must also have a sufficient number of individually registered tax practitioners linked to the company or partnership to provide sufficient supervision and control for the entity. Let's look at each of these requirements in a bit more detail now. So the first one is the fit and proper requirement. All registered tax practitioners must satisfy a fit and proper person requirement. Satisfying fit and proper is an ongoing registration requirement, and it applies to individual practitioners and each partner and director of a partnership or company. In deciding if an individual is fit and proper, we consider, is the person of good fame, integrity and character? Have they been convicted of a serious taxation offence or an offence involving fraud or dishonesty? Are they an undischarged bankrupt? Have they been sentenced to a term of imprisonment? And do they meet their personal tax obligations? It is important to know that there are serious consequences for failing the fit and proper requirements. And if a registered tax practitioner ceases to meet the fit and proper person requirement, we may decide to terminate the registration. New applicants for tax or BAS agent registration will need to disclose any of these above events that we've just discussed in their registration application and provide details and circumstances surrounding those events. What do you think those already registered as tax and BAS agents should do when these events occur to them? Let's do a quick poll on this. Over to you, Julie.
Thanks, Tracy. The poll that we have for you this time is a question, and it is: if you are a registered tax or BAS agent, what should you do if an event affecting your registration occurs? So we've got a few different options for you to choose from here. So the first one is notify the TPB of the event details in writing within 30 days of the event occurring. B is disclose the event details to the TPB when renewing your registration. C is both A and B if renewing registration later than 30 days of the event, and D is unsure. So I'm just going to launch that for you now. And again, I'll give you some time to put through your responses and we will share the results again in a second. I'll just give you a bit more time to put through your responses. And I'll also just remind everyone, if you do have a question, please pop it in the Q&A because we're not actually monitoring the chat function today. That's just for you to have your conversations in there. So yeah, if you have a question in the Q&A, that'd be great. Okay, I'm just going to end that poll. Thank you to everyone for putting through your responses there. So it looks like we've got 40% of people believe that they should notify the TPB of the event details in writing within 30 days of the event occurring. We have about 5% say that they should disclose the event details to the TPB when renewing the registration. 59% of you have said both A and B, and 2% have said that they're unsure about the correct response. So Tracy, I'll just hand back to you now so that you can talk us through what the right answer is there.
Thanks, Julie. And it's great to see that 59% have selected the correct answer, which is C. So you must advise the TPB in writing of an event when the event occurs, or you become aware that the event has occurred. And there's an online form on our website that you can use to notify us of that event. We can send a link in the hyperlinks document for your reference. If you're renewing your registration within the 30 days of the event occurring, you can, of course, advise us in the renewal. But if the event occurred earlier than that and you've already notified us, you should still also advise us of that in your renewal when you do renew. There's a question on the fit and proper section of the renewal form that actually specifically asks that. So you should advise us of the event occurring within the 30 days and at the time of your renewal. Okay, let's move on to professional indemnity insurance, or PI insurance, which is a consumer protection mechanism to compensate your clients in the event they suffer loss due to an act, error, or omission as a result of services you provide. You must maintain PI that meets our requirements during your period of registration as a tax practitioner. You will need to provide details of your PI insurance when you renew your registration with us. So if you hold your own PI insurance, you will need to provide us with your policy number, the name of the insurer, the start and end date of the policy, and the amount of your cover. If you are covered by another registered tax practitioner, i.e. you're an employee and your employer's PI covers you, you will need to provide their name and their registration number.
Thanks, Tracy. Can you take us through the renewal requirements now for individual registration?
Certainly. So before you renew, first thing you need to do before you log into your My Profile to renew your registration is have the following ready to go. If you haven't already verified your identity with us, you will need to do that. So you'll need to complete a one-of proof of identity process at your renewal. You'll need to confirm you have completed the required amount of continued professional education or CPE and have the details of your relevant experience available. You'll have to have your PI insurance in place. And if you have relied on being a voting member when you registered with us, or a voting member of a recognised professional association, then you need to have your current details of your membership available as well. You should always check your contact details and keep those up to date with us, and let us know if anything has changed since your last renewal or your registration. Provide details of any events that may affect your eligibility for registration, and this includes any overdue tax obligations.
Great, thank you for that, Tracy. Before we move on, can you also share some tips with everyone around the proof of identity process?
Sure. So for our proof of identity process, we use the Document Verification Service, or DVS. It's a national online system that allows authorised agencies to verify certain identity documents issued by a range of Australian, state or territory government agencies. The DVS is a secure system that matches key details in your Australian issued identity documents with a government record and provides timely online results. We recommend that you use the following Australian issued documents to verify your identity through the verification process: your driver's license, a Medicare card, and your Australian passport. If you don't have those documents, you can use other Australian issued documents that are listed on the screen there: your birth certificate, change of names certificate, a marriage certificate, citizenship certificate, certification of registration by descent, an IMI card, and an Australian visa if you're using a foreign passport. We also have a really handy video available on this process, and Julie will send you the link to this after the webinar. Okay, we're moving on now to our tax agent education requirements. Now, this is obviously very important at the time you register initially with us. So for tax agents, there are six regulations that you can register under. Regulation 201 through to 206. And it depends, which regulation depends on your academic qualifications, your board approved courses that you've completed, and also your relevant experience. If you want to register as a tax agent who's providing tax financial advice services only, there are 4 newish pathways to register under: Regulation 207 through to 210. For individual tax agents registered under these new pathways, they require that you are an Australian financial services licensee or a representative of one currently, or have been an AFS or a representative of one in the last 90 days. Our tax agent qualifications table summarises the requirements under these items, and they cover off on the primary qualification, the board approved courses, and the relevant experience required. I won't go into all the details today, but again, you can find this information on our website, and we'll send you a link after the webinar. Moving on to BAS agents. The requirements to register for a BAS agent is dependent on 2 different regulations, 101 or 102. And there isn't much difference between the 2 of them. The main difference is that under 102, you would be a voting member of a recognised BAS or tax agent association, and it means that you can have slightly less relevant experience hours. But under both regulations, you do require at least a minimum of Certificate 4 in accounting or bookkeeping or financial services, and also the GST BAS taxation principle courses. In order to renew your registration and also to register in the first instance, you must also confirm that you meet the relevant experience requirements. Relevant experience includes work as or under the supervision of a registered tax or BAS agent, or work of another kind approved by the TPB. For your experience to count as relevant experience, it must include substantial involvement in one or more types of tax or BAS agent services, or substantial involvement in an area of taxation law to which one or more of those types of tax agent services relate. All registered tax practitioners also need to complete a minimum amount, a number of hours of continuing professional education or CPE to maintain their knowledge and their skills and keep their skills relevant to the tax or BAS agent services that they provide. It's one of the obligations under the Code of Professional Conduct. And over a standard 3-year period, tax agents need to complete a minimum of 120 hours of CPE with a minimum of 20 hours per year. BAS agents need to complete a minimum of 90 hours of CPE with a minimum of 20 hours each year. Note that if your registration is for a period that is not 3 years, you should complete CPE on a pro rata basis. CPE activities should be provided by persons or organisations with suitable qualifications or practical experience in the relevant subject areas. Any education activity relevant to the services you provide that maintains, develops, or promotes your skills, knowledge, or attributes is considered to be a CPE activity under our policy. You should use your personal judgment when selecting CPE activities to undertake. A wide range of activities can be undertaken, and up to 25% of these activities can be relevant technical or professional reading. As an individual tax or BAS agent, you will also need to maintain a record and evidence of the CPE activities you have completed, including the details of the activities and the hours undertaken. Records of your CPE should be kept for at least 5 years from the end of the CPE period. Julie, I'll hand back to you now to conduct a quick poll.
Thank you so much, Tracy. So you've just covered the key things that individual practitioners need to consider when preparing to renew their registration under the standard option. So let's consider a scenario where we have an individual BAS agent registered under a standard 3-year registration. So they already meet one of the 2 options under the qualifications and experience requirements, so have also completed their relevant experience. They have completed 80 hours of CPE. They have PI insurance in place, they meet our fit and proper person requirements, and there are no circumstances impacting their registration renewal. So the question we're asking here is, in this situation, can the BAS agent complete their renewal application? So there's a couple of options to choose from. The first one is yes, they have met all their renewal requirements, and the second option is no, they have not met all their renewal requirements. So I'm just going to launch that poll for you. It's launching it now, so that should pop up on your screen any second, and I'll give you some time to put through your answers. Got about 40% of people who have put through their responses yet so far, so I'll keep it open for a bit longer. You want to have a think about it. So there's the 2 options there. Yes, they've met their requirements, and no, they have not. Okay, I've still got people responding, so I'll keep it open for a little bit longer. Okay, I might end that one now. And it looks like we had 34% of people say yes, they have met all the renewal requirements, and 66% of you say no, they have not met all of them. So I'm just going to share that so you can see that on your screen. And Tracy, I'll hand back to you so you can tell us what the correct answer is.
Thanks, Julie. The BAS agent in this scenario has done everything right. However, they still need to complete the minimum number of CPE hours, which, as we just discussed, for a BAS agent is 90 hours and 120 for tax agents. They also need to ensure they have kept a record of those CPE activities and that they are relevant to the services they provide. They need to complete a minimum of the 20 hours, as we discussed earlier, over each year over a standard 3-year registration period. So as long as this person does the additional 10 hours by their next renewal, they will meet the requirements for registration.
Great, thanks for clarifying that for us, Tracy. How about we move on now to have a look at what's different for companies and partnerships and what they need to do to prepare for their renewal.
Sure. So when renewing your partnership or company registration, before you log into My Profile to renew your registration, you will want to have a look at have the following details ready to go. So your current PI insurance policy, your sufficient number of registered individual tax or BAS agents, the directors and partners who are not registered as individual tax or BAS agents, their details available, and any events that may affect the eligibility for registration of the entity, including any overdue tax obligations of the company or partnership. So let's look at the sufficient number requirements in a bit more detail. First of all, keep in mind that companies and partnerships also need to meet the PI insurance requirements that we spoke about for individuals earlier. I won't cover that again, but if you want more information, you can check our hyperlinks document that we'll send you after the webinar today. So with regard to sufficient number, one of the key registration requirements for companies and partnerships is that they maintain a sufficient number of individual tax practitioners who provide the services to a competent standard and carry out supervisory arrangements for the services the company or partnership provides. There's no set formula for what a sufficient number is. You need to assess that yourself based on your business structure and the number of employees you may have and the number of clients that you may have as well. We've developed an information sheet that explains sufficient number and the range of things that you will need to consider. So that's available on our website. As I mentioned, the role of the sufficient number of individuals is to supervise and ensure services are provided on behalf of the entity to a competent standard. Our view is that competent standard means that a person is properly qualified or capable. To supervise means to have oversight or direction of the provision of services. This may include periodic spot checks or a quality assurance mechanism. It's really important to note there that obviously the sufficient number needs to be at least one person. Many people ask us what number will meet the sufficient number. Like I said earlier, there's no set formula, and as I've just stated, it needs to be at least one person. However, it can vary from entity to entity, and to determine the sufficient number, we may ask you some of these questions if we're not sure that you've got adequate supervision in your practice, but these are things that you can consider yourself when you're renewing. The size of your business, the types of services you offer, the number of qualified and experienced staff that you have as employees or contractors, the frequency of appropriate training and development activities for all your staff, the level and type of technology or software that you use, the supervisory arrangements in place, and any conditions imposed on your registration based on the qualifications and experience of your staff. So who can form the sufficient number? A wide range of people can make up your sufficient number. Again, it depends on your circumstances, and it can include partners, directors, employees, contractors, or staff under service trust. For company or partnership tax agents with a tax financial advice services condition, the registered individuals can include Australian Financial Services licensees, the representatives of such. It includes authorised representatives, responsible managers, compliance officers, and regional or line managers. Importantly, the sufficient number must include at least one individual registered as a tax agent, with or without the tax financial advice service condition. When a company or partnership determines that it has enough individual tax practitioners registered to make up its sufficient number, they must ensure they still have that sufficient number of registered individuals in place when it comes time to renew their registration.
Thanks, Tracy. Now that we've heard all the things that we need to have ready to complete the registration process, can you talk about how tax practitioners go about renewing their registration via My Profile?
Certainly. So your online renewal form is available via My Profile 90 days before your renewal expiry date. We will also contact you via email and SMS to remind you when your renewal is due. And that's why it's always important to keep your contact details up to date and current with us. Again, when you receive your reminders to renew, you must ensure that you renew at least 30 days prior to your renewal expiry date. When you log into My Profile to complete your renewal, you will also need to complete the multi-factor authentication process, or MFA. MFA adds a layer of protection when accessing your account and helps prevent it being accessed by an unauthorized third party. You're most likely familiar with MFA, as many apps and online programs use this method of authentication. If you do need help or have questions, you can check out our FAQs, or frequently asked questions, or instructional video on our website. Again, we'll send you the link to these. Now we'll move to the actual renewal process. So once you've logged into My Profile, on the left-hand side in the menu, under Action Required, you will actually see your renewal if it is due to be renewed within that 90 days. You simply click on the link and you'll be redirected to the renewal form. You check that the pre-populated information contained or presented to you in that form is correct, and then you click Next. If you have all the essential information on hand, which we mentioned earlier, then the renewal process shouldn't take any longer than 30 minutes to complete. Also, your form will automatically save as you complete each field, so you can leave and return to your renewal at any time through your My Profile. The next screen that appears of the renewal process will show your registration details. You need to confirm that all your details are correct here, and if any details are incorrect or need updating, you can do that via My Profile. Once everything is correct, you can move on to the next stage. As we mentioned earlier, if you haven't already verified your identity with us, you will be asked to complete the one-off proof of identity process. You will not be able to submit your renewal until you do complete the proof of identity. You should make sure your legal name on your identity documents you're using is exactly the same as the name you used to register with us. If your legal name on your identity documents is incorrect or different, you must contact the responsible government agency to have your name corrected before undertaking the proof of identity. If your legal name on the TPB register is incorrect, you can contact us via our change registration details form available on our website. As I said earlier, if you need help with the proof of identity process, you can check out our video on our website. Professional indemnity insurance will be presented to you next, and this is where you will need to update your PI insurance details. As we went through earlier, if you have your own PI cover, you will need the policy name, number, the name of the insurer, the start and end date, and the amount of cover. If you are covered by the PI insurance of your employer or another registered tax practitioner, you will need to insert their name and their registration number into the renewal form. Once you've entered all the required information, you click Next to continue. Next, you'll be presented with the registration conditions. This will present any conditions that you currently may have on your registration. And depending upon your qualification and experience, you may have had a condition imposed on your registration. You may have requested it, or the board may have imposed the condition. And a condition limits the scope of the services you can provide or limits your services to a particular area of taxation law. If no condition applies, you simply select no and click the button, the next button. If you need to add a condition, you select yes and click the add condition button in a pop-up screen. Here you can add a description of the condition and click save. The condition will now appear on the registration page and you can move on. Next, we will ask you about your relevant experience and request that you confirm the amount of relevant experience that you have completed in your period of the last 3 years of registration. This will be pre-populated based on the registration regulation that you are registered under. So you simply need to confirm that you meet the requirements and then select next. If for any reason you have not met the relevant experience requirements, you will need to get in touch with us via our Contact Us form and discuss this further. Other renewal requirements will appear next. If you're a member of a recognised professional association, you will need to provide the details on the next screen. Make sure you have your membership number handy, and membership is not a registration requirement unless you have used it to gain your registration. For example, if you're registered under Regulation 102, 206 or 210, you will need to be a voting member of a recognised professional association. If you are renewing your registration via these pathways and for any reasons you are not a voting member, you will need to get in touch with us via our Contact Us form before you can proceed with your renewal. If you are a member of a recognised professional association, be sure to attach your evidence of your membership. Once you have done that, you simply click Next. To complete your renewal, you will also need to confirm that you meet the CPE requirements relevant to your registration. All of these requirements we discussed earlier. And if you have completed the requirements, you can simply select yes and then click Next. If for any reason you have not met the requirements, you will need to get in touch with us via our Contact Us form. The next section will require you to confirm that you are a fit and proper person. This includes acknowledging that there are no matters that affect your good fame, integrity, and character. If you have anything to report, include full details in the required fields in your renewal form, and then click Next to continue. Once you've completed these steps, make sure you review your renewal before making any payments. Importantly, changes will not be possible once the form has been submitted. Before you can submit your renewal, you must pay the application fee in full. The form contains payment instructions and will direct you to the Government EasyPay or the BPay website where you can complete your payment. Once you've paid, enter the details of your payment, such as the date of payment and the receipt number and the amount paid into your renewal form. Be sure not to include the $ or decimal point when you include the amount. You will then need to attach a copy of your receipt by clicking on Add File at the bottom of the page. Once you've completed this section, click Next to continue. The final step in the renewal process is the declaration section of the form. You must be sure to complete the declaration page and then submit your application. This is important because even if your payment has been accepted, your application is not complete and we cannot process it until we receive the declaration and the renewal form has been submitted. When everything has been submitted correctly, you will receive a submission number followed by an email copy of your submission. Congratulations, you have completed your renewal process successfully once you receive that email from us. Now let's move on to maintaining your registration. So as we draw to the end of this webinar, it is important that all registered tax practitioners understand that registration requirements are ongoing. You must continue to meet them throughout the time of your registration with us. These include satisfying the fit and proper requirement at all times, complying with the Code of Professional Conduct. This sets out the professional and ethical standards required of tax practitioners, including the obligations you have to your clients and the TPB. You must meet the TPB's PI insurance requirements, and for individuals, you must meet your writing whenever you cease to meet one of the registration requirements, circumstances change, or there's a change that will affect your registration, and there is a change in your business or email address or any other circumstances relevant to your registration. This is especially important to make sure you not only comply with your obligations, but also that you don't miss important TPB updates.
Thanks, Tracy. Let's move on to some questions now. We've had quite a lot coming through during the session today. So the first one I've got for you here is about a bookkeeper. So we have a bookkeeper who's an employee and they prepare their employer's BAS. Do they actually need to be registered as a BAS agent?
So no, a bookkeeper does not need to be registered, and especially if they're an employee, they're providing services to their employer. So no, they do not, unless they want to go out and become registered as a BAS agent, which is the option available to them if they've got the relevant experience and the qualifications required. And they would want to do that if they are intending on advertising their services and charging a fee. But whilst they're an employee, no, they do not need to be registered.
Great, thank you for that. The next question I've got is around the registration period. Someone's asked, can I register for a shorter period than 3 years, or is that the only option we have available?
Okay, so the current legislation actually states for a period of not less than 3 years. So your registration period is for 3 years. If you do no longer require your registration during that 3 years, there are options available. You can surrender your registration at any time by writing into us. We have a form available on our website for surrendering, or you can wait until the end of your registration period and simply fail to renew if that you no longer need that registration. But at the moment, it is a 3-year registration period.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question I've got here is someone's asking, if I'm a sole trader tax agent and then become a company and the sole director of that company, do they need to register both a company tax agent registration as well as an individual tax agent registration?
Okay, so we do hear this question quite a lot. We get phone calls and emails about this, and we've recently updated our information on our website to hopefully make it a bit clearer. You do need to register both entities. So as we talked about in the webinar, the sufficient number would be the individually registered person, and the entity who is providing the service and charging the fee and advertising their services is the company. So that also needs to be registered. So even though you may be the sole director and supervising agent, if you choose to provide your services through a company or a partnership structure, you will need to maintain the 2 registrations, your individual and the entity registration, either company or partnership.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. The next one I've got is around what happens if a tax practitioner doesn't renew their registration on time.
Okay, so this is why it's really important that you keep your details up to date with us and that you do know when your registration renewal is due. If you fail to renew on time, we will let you know pretty much the day after your registration expiry date has occurred, and you will no longer be able to provide tax practitioner services for a fee or reward. We will also notify the ATO and you will lose access to your online services. And if you want to maintain or lodge another application, you will have to lodge a new application and go through the process again of registering as a new applicant. You will receive a new registration number as well. And you will have to wait until we are able to process that application. So you should not be providing services for a fee or reward whilst you are unregistered for that period between when the registration has ceased and your new registration has been registered. So again, I can't stress strongly enough how important it is that you do know when your registration is due, you have it marked somewhere, and that you renew your registration.
Well, I think Tracy might have frozen. Oh, you're
Oh,
back. All good. I think we got the gist of
did
that.
you get the gist of
Yes, thank
it?
you. I've got a question now that's come through, and it's someone who's saying that they're an employee that is doing BAS, but they still want to keep their registration. So if that's the case, do they still need to have PI insurance as well? So it's
So,
saying they're an
yeah,
employee, but they want to be
yeah,
registered. Yeah.
registered. Yeah. So it is a requirement of registration that you maintain your PI. However, there is a section available on the form that if you are an employee and you're not providing the tax services for a fee or reward, that you tick that section of the form and it will let you move on to the next part.
Great, thank you. I've got a question here around applications and processing times. So I've got a practitioner who says that they need an individual registered to meet their sufficient number, which we spoke about today, and they're just curious how long the application process would take to be approved.
Okay, so we have a very efficient application processing area within the TPB, and we aim to process all new applications within 30 days. New applications are our priority because obviously you can't provide services until you are registered. Um, Depending on the time of year, we may have peaks and troughs with the number of applications that we do receive. And we've just been through one of our busiest periods at the moment. As you can appreciate, a lot of people want to be registered in time for tax time. So just be conscious of certain periods throughout the year may be busier than others, and we may sometimes fall outside that 30 days, but we generally will have your new registration process within that 30-day period. Sometimes it can be even quicker.
Oh, that's good news. Thank you. I've got another question here. It's a bit similar to the other one about PI insurance, but this one's saying that they're an individually registered tax agent. However, they work full-time as an employee. So with the PI insurance, can they provide their employers PI insurance details, or do they need to have it in their own right?
Okay, so because they're not charging a fee or reward in their own capacity, and they're registered as they're registered and working as an employee, they can provide us with the PI details of their employer because they're providing the tax services on behalf of the employer.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. This next question I've got for you is in the webinar, you spoke about advising the TPB if they have an outstanding personal tax debt with the ATO. If they do have a payment plan in place, do they need to disclose the amount payable and the payment plan in the registration renewal with the TPB?
It's always good to notify us of any outstanding tax obligations, but certainly you should tell us that you are in a current payment arrangement. And being in a current payment arrangement, which you are keeping up to date with, is the same as being as having paid that debt. So as long as you keep your payments up to date and current with the ATO, we accept that you are across all of your personal tax obligations in those circumstances. But you should always just advise us of that in your renewal form.
Okay, thank you. The next question I've got here is about someone who's doing some further study. So they're already registered as a tax agent, it looks like, and they're doing some further study. It's a degree qualification. They're wondering, can they claim that as CPE?
Okay, so you can claim any additional studies that you do as CPE as long as you are not relying on those studies to gain your registration. So as this person is already registered with us, it sounds like they're just upskilling and doing some additional studies, then that can count towards their CPE. But if you are relying on those studies and that education to register, it is not counted as CPE.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I've got a question here about R&D tax incentive consultants. Just wondering, do they need to register as a tax agent if they're contracting?
Okay, so I would say yes, they should be registered if they're contracting because it's probably depends on the way they are contracting. But if they are working under their own ABN, I would say yes, you need to register and tell us that you have request the R&D condition on your application.
Okay, thank you. Next question I've got back to CPE. This one is asking if they've done some CPE before they actually registered with us as a tax agent, can they count that towards their CPE once they're registered?
The CPE has to be within the period of your registration. So no, anything that you've done prior would not count towards your CPE during that 3-year registration period.
Thanks, Tracy. We are actually getting quite a lot of questions around CPE, so I might stay on that for just a second. I've got someone who's saying now, does CPE and experience get adjusted for maternity leave for an individual BAS agent registration?
Okay, so we do hear this question quite a bit as well. And unfortunately, at the moment, no, it does not. But it is something that government is looking at. Treasury is currently looking at some legislative changes to our TASA legislation. And I know that is something that has, because it is raised quite a lot with us, that it has been raised with Treasury. So all I can say at the moment is watch this space. Potentially down the track, there may be some concessions available. And it's not just for maternity, it would also potentially be for people who take a break from the industry. People want to go and travel or for whatever reason take a break and then come back to the industry. So it is something that is being looked at, but at the moment there are no concessions available, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you for that. Next one here is around membership of a professional body or professional association. Does a BAS agent need to be a member to become registered or to maintain their registration as well?
Okay, so if they are registered under Regulation 101 or intend to register under that 101, no, they do not need to be a voting member of a recognised professional association. If they're looking at registering under 102, then one of the requirements is that you are a voting member of a recognised tax or BAS agent association. They're all found on our website. There's a list available and they're broken down into tax and BAS agent associations. And the benefit of being a voting member is, as I said earlier, you only need the 1,000 hours of relevant experience in the last 4 years instead of the 1,400 hours.
Okay, just in relation to that, Tracy, we've got a couple of people asking how they know if they are a voting member, what that actually means.
Okay, so it depends on which association you have your membership with, and I'd advise you to ask your association if you don't know whether you are a voting member. Um, for most associations, if you're a student member, it does not have voting rights, but it really does depend on the association itself and where they impose the voting rights. So you need to check with your professional association with that one.
Okay, thank you for that. Sticking to the same topic here, I've got another question that's just popped up saying, what proof do practitioners need to provide if they are a member of a professional association?
Okay, so they must provide some sort of evidence. So a lot of people will provide their certificate that shows they are a member and it has their membership number on it. And we do ask for their membership number and the dates of the membership. Other people might provide us with a current statement showing that they've paid their latest membership fee. So something like the one of those is usually what we see. If we have any questions with regard to your voting membership or it's not clear to us, we may contact you to ask more questions about it. I am aware that some of the associations have what they call an evergreen clause, and people pay their membership by the month. So it's a little bit difficult to provide us with a current statement because it's a moving feast. However, their membership is valid for a 12-month period. So either your initial certificate that you were provided with or a current statement showing that you've paid your latest fee and that it's in the current period is usually sufficient to renew your registration.
Great, thanks, Tracy. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I might just ask you a couple of quick questions before we finish up. This one is around the registration fee, and
Mhm.
it's asking if a tax agent doesn't charge a fee, but is working as an employee of another tax agent, is the application fee for the registration the same amount as it is for everyone else?
Okay. So yes, it is. We only have two fees, one for tax agent and one for BAS agent. The person may be thinking previously we did have a breakdown of in business and not in business fee structures, but that's been a number of years since that's been in place. So it is the same fee whether you're an employee or you are running your own business.
Okay, thank you. I did see an interesting comment pop up in the chat earlier as well. Someone saying that when they first registered as a tax practitioner, it was only $2 to register. Be nice if it was still the
Many moons
case.
ago, yes.
Yes, yes, definitely. Okay, so just one final question for you, Tracy, and this one's back to CPE and aligning your CPE. If someone wants to change their CPE dates, how do they go about doing that? What do they need to do?
Okay, if you've already nominated your CPE period for this current registration, you can't realign your dates until your next renewal. And you can realign and by telling us on the renewal that you wish to do so or by writing into us. And now there's the option available to align your CPE with your professional association if you are a member. And you may want to align it to a calendar year or a financial year. If you do that, you need to remember to pro rata for the registration period. But you can't do that if you have already nominated a period in your current registration period.
Great, thank you for that. And I think that's the last question for you today. So thank you so much for putting together that presentation. It was really informative and I think it's helped a lot of people today as well. So just to
Thank you.
finish up, I would like to give some information on how to stay in touch. I just want to encourage you all to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, or X as it's called now. That's where we'll keep you up to date with the latest information available. We also have our newsletter, TPB e-news, which goes out every month. So I'd encourage you to subscribe to that if you haven't already. You can do that by jumping onto our website at tpb.gov.au/newsroom. And also, if you're interested in attending more webinars, please go to our website at tpb.gov.au/webinars and you can register for our upcoming events. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you do so, you will receive notifications when we post new videos, and we do record all of our webinars, so have quite a comprehensive library available on YouTube for everyone to watch. And as we always say, you can still claim your CPE for viewing the videos as well. So just to finish up, I want to say a big thank you to Tracy for providing all that useful information, and huge thank you to Amanda Amanda and Dominic, who were kept very busy today by answering all the questions. I'll just note that if we didn't get to the question that you had today, we will put together an FAQ document, and that'll go up on our website on our webinar resources hub, so you'll be able to see the answers there. So yeah, we just hope that you found this webinar beneficial. We think they're a great way for everyone to keep up to date and a good way to get some free CPE. And just to finish up, I would like to launch an exit survey. So when you leave today, you'll be prompted to go into the survey and just give us a little bit of feedback about how the webinar went today, what you think we need to improve on. And you can also let us know of any topics that might be of interest as well. So we're always looking to bring things of interest to you as well. So let us know if there's something you want to hear about. And yeah, thank you for joining us. And we do hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Julie.